points. Today, we are beginning the hardest topic of the year. So I hope you are prepared to talk about rocks, the hardest topic of the year. Ba-dum-bum. Yes, today we're going to be talking about rocks. And so as you are opening up your books to our lesson notes section, let's begin with a definition of what rocks actually are. Rocks can be defined as a hard substance made of one or more minerals. Now, all last week we learned about minerals, and you've got an idea of what minerals are, what minerals are made of, and the diversity and variety of minerals that exist on planet Earth. Well, today we put those together, so to speak, to form rocks. Now, yesterday you watched some videos, and I am curious as to how well you were paying attention to those videos, because I'm going to ask you a question here now. Are you ready for the question? All right. Raise your hand if you can identify any of the three rock groups. Feel free to pause the video at this time to discuss. No. None of those rock groups you mentioned were the ones I was looking for. Think of this hint for a moment. We will rock you. Probably the most famous rock group of all time is not from that song, Queen, although they are very famous too. The Rolling Stones. Here's one of the most famous rock groups, the Rolling Stones. By the way, I'm just kidding. No, you were absolutely correct in identifying those different rock groups that you mentioned from yesterday's video. So nice job. This was just a joke. All right, moving along. So what we're going to do here today is we're going to discuss those three rock groups that you mentioned. Going to take them one at a time, and we're going to build upon our basic knowledge. So let's begin with igneous rocks. Igneous rocks. If you think of igneous rocks, I want you to think about that word igneous, because it comes from a root word, and I'm going to give you a hint here right now. Are you ready? Watch this hint. I just did something. What did I just do? I just ignited this lighter. The word igneous comes from the same Greek root word from which we get words like ignite. Okay? It is the root word ignis. And ignis is a Latin word that means fire. So when we ignite something, we are causing it to become a flame. We're causing it to catch on fire. And it's no accident that the igneous rock group uses this same root word, fire. And it's because that's basically where these rocks come from. They are formed from molten material, either above or below the surface of the earth. And when we talk about molten material, we're talking about essentially melted rock. Molten material is really nothing more than melted rock. And in order to melt a rock, whether it's below the surface or above the surface of the earth, it's got to be pretty darn hot. You have to have incredibly high temperatures to melt rocks. So here we go. Magma is molten material or melted rock that is found beneath the surface of the earth. And when it rises to the surface, typically in the case of a volcano, and we got a number of volcanoes around planet Earth right now that are erupting and oozing lava out from beneath the ground. But lava is molten rock that is found above the surface. So once again, magma is beneath the surface, lava is above the surface. So let's look at this picture again here. This chamber here is called a magma chamber, and it's called magma because it is melted or molten rock beneath the surface. But think of a volcano as like a pimple. You got the pressure building from below. It starts pushing up on the surface like a pimple pushes up on the surface of your skin until it reaches a certain point that the pressure is so great it may erupt and ooze out fluid from your skin. It's kind of like a bursting volcano, an erupting volcano. But once that liquid reaches the surface, it's no longer called magma. If you can see it on the outside of the earth, we call it lava. So think about a volcano as being a gigantic geozit. What a lovely thought, huh? All right, let's move on. So there are some examples of igneous rocks that are very common around our planet. There is obsidian, basalt, granite. All of these are examples of igneous rocks that either form above or below the surface of the earth. Here's some pictures of them. In fact, here is some basalt. Right here in New Jersey, we actually have basalt mines near Rock Hill, I think. There's a place in central Jersey where basalt is mined. Yes, New Jersey once had volcanic activity. We have lots of igneous rocks found here in New Jersey, but this is basalt. This one here, the shiny one here, is called obsidian. Obsidian, also known as volcanic glass. Quick story about obsidian. Years ago, I went to Yellowstone National Park with my wife, and I like rocks and minerals, and we stopped at this one overlook called Obsidian Cliff. And when we got there, we didn't see any obsidian in the cliff, and I was really bummed out and disappointed. And my wife and I are looking at it. I'm like, where's all the obsidian? So there was a plaque there, a sign with some pictures of what the cliff used to look like. And the picture told a story. And the story was that millions of people have visited Yellowstone National Park, including Obsidian Cliffs, and they all thought that this obsidian, this volcanic glass, was really cool. And so millions of people remove these little flakes, these little chips, these little pieces, these little igneous rocks from the cliffside, that over the last 100 years, they have removed the entire cliff. There's no more obsidian found in Obsidian Cliff because people stole all of the obsidian, and it made me sad. And so whenever you go to a national park or a protected area of any kind, take as many pictures as you want, but don't take any objects with you, because then people in the future will be disappointed if they come to see something that no longer is there. I couldn't believe that they actually stole an entire cliff over, it was been about 100 years or more, but all the obsidian was gone. Some granite here. Some of you might even have granite countertops in your kitchens, and some pumice. All of these are great examples of igneous rocks. Let's go on to the second rock group called sedimentary. It's sedimentary, my dear Watson, sedimentary. Now, as this name implies, sedimentary rocks are formed from sediments. And, well, what are sediments? Well, they are particles, smaller particles broken off from larger rocks. Basically, the weathering process, which we'll be learning about in the near future, the weathering process, the breaking down of big rocks into smaller rocks and then tinier particles and materials, they're called sediments. Sedimentary rocks are formed from deposited sediments. Now, if you look at this picture here, you'll notice that it's a cross section of a stream. There's moving water here, faster moving water to slower moving water. And in faster moving water, larger particles or sediments are able to be moved. As you get to slower moving water, smaller and smaller particles are allowed to settle out of the water stream. So, knowing what a sedimentary rock is made of, there are some sedimentary rocks that have big particles that you can see. This is a sedimentary rock with large particles. Here's another sedimentary rock with larger particles. You can tell what those are made out of compared to other sedimentary rocks with smaller particles. It basically tells you a story of the conditions under which these sedimentary rocks were formed. Was it formed with fast moving water or very slow moving water that allowed smaller particles to settle out? So, looking at the composition of different kinds of sedimentary rocks can tell you a story about how it forms. So, here's some examples, some common examples of sedimentary rocks, and they include sandstone, limestone, and shale. Here where we live, we've got a lot of limestone. There's limestone all over the place where we live. There is some shale to the north and sandstone to our south, but we've got a lot of limestone around here. But let's check out some pictures of these different kinds of sedimentary rocks. And here we go. We've got some sandstone here. This one is chalk, actually. Same material that we use to write on a chalkboard. This one here is coal. Coal is a type of sedimentary rock, and here's some coal right here. See how similar it looks. And this one here is called conglomerate. It looks like a conglomerate of a lot of little particles, bits and pieces of other materials, sediments in particular. And that's exactly what it is made of. So there's two of the rock groups. Now let's talk about the third rock group, which are metamorphic. Metamorphic rocks. If we examine this word, metamorphic, two basic parts to it. Meta means change and morph means form. And when you think of the word metamorphosis, a couple of critters may come to mind, like frogs and butterflies. These are organisms, living things that undergo metamorphosis or a dramatic change in form. Frogs go from eggs to little cute tadpoles until they undergo metamorphosis, lose their tails and gills, grow lungs and legs, and become frogs. That's a process of metamorphosis. Think of butterflies. They go from eggs to larvae called caterpillars. They build a chrysalis inside which their bodies undergo a remarkable metamorphosis into an adult butterfly. Butterflies and frogs undergo a dramatic metamorphosis or a dramatic change in form. Well, rocks can also undergo a metamorphosis, and when they do, they are called metamorphic rocks. So, metamorphic rocks are those that are formed from other rocks that are due to changes in heat, pressure, and or chemistry. It can be any one or all of these three different factors that can cause change: heat, pressure, and or chemistry. Maybe there are sedimentary rocks near where a volcano is erupting. Now, where the volcano is actually erupting, igneous rocks will form, but if they're close enough to it, maybe the heat will just change those sedimentary rocks into metamorphic rocks. Or near plate boundaries. We'll be talking about plate tectonics this year. Plate boundaries can cause a lot of heat as well as pressure, and that pressure can cause changes that take place in rocks, and those rocks can become metamorphosized, metamorphic rocks. Likewise, there might be an area, a region where there is unusual chemistry taking place in a bog, perhaps, or in a hot spring that can cause the chemistry to change rocks within it as well. And they can cause a metamorphosis, which will create a change in a complete rock, causing it to become a metamorphic rock. So, what are some examples of metamorphic rocks? Well, here we go. The first one, I love this one. This is a gneiss rock. That's right. This is a gneiss rock. It's pronounced nice, even though it starts with a G. Gneiss is pronounced nice. So gneiss rocks are metamorphic rocks. Marble, not the kind of marbles that roll around. Those are just made out of glass. But marble like this. This is an example of marble. Marble is an example of a metamorphic rock. Here's a good one, schist. You have to be careful how you pronounce this rock, but schist is an example of a metamorphic rock, as is quartzite. All of these are examples of metamorphic rocks, rocks that have undergone changes due to heat, pressure, and or chemistry. So here we have them. Here's gneiss and marble, quartzite, and what was the other one? Schist. So here we have some examples of metamorphic rocks. So there we have it. We have our three basic rock groups, some examples of each. Next video, we're going to explore these rock groups in a bit more detail, give a lot more information about them. But until then, I'm simply going to say bye-bye.